Happy Halloween, everyone, and welcome back to another speed within The Sims 4. I'm Auvbri, and today we are doing my all-time favorite horror movie house. So this is from Ju-on the Grudge, which is probably my favorite horror movie franchise of all time. I know they're doing a reboot version of it coming next year, so I'm looking really forward to that. I'm a huge fan of this franchise, and I remember the first time I saw it, I was scared out of death, and when I actually edited this last night, I was so scared. I had so many goosebumps just because of the music, the thumbnail, all that good stuff. So it was really creepy, so I hope you guys like it. Now there are two versions of this house. There is the American version, which is the one I'm tackling now, and then we have the Japanese version. So if you didn't know, The Grudge is based on a Japanese horror movie called Ju-on, which I hope I pronounced that right, but the houses look a lot similar. I decided to go with the American version of the house because I think the American version of the movies are so much more scarier than the Japanese versions, and it's probably the version that most people are gonna recognize, the American version. So that's kind of the vibe I was going for here. Another thing is that there are two interior versions of this build. So there is the build from the Grudge time, where she got killed and her family lived in the house, and then there is the version of the American family that moves into the house afterwards, after she is being killed, and the family was found in the attic and all that good stuff. I tried to mix kind of those two aesthetics a little bit, because there's just some gray areas in the build itself, and that's also why building this was actually very difficult, because you don't get to see all of the house, and some of the layout just don't correspond to what you're actually seeing from the outside versus the inside. So I literally sat down with the movie next to me and a piece of paper, something to draw with, and I sat down and drew out how I could see the layout be from scene to scene, where the different furniture was. And there's just some parts that, especially down in the living room space, that just doesn't make sense to what you actually see from the outside. So I had to get a little bit creative with where I placed certain items. Also the staircase, I would have loved to have split level staircases in this build, but it's just not something that's possible in The Sims at this time. So I had to get creative. I had to try and kind of cheat my way out of it, and I think I received the best possible outcome of this staircase. The famous staircase where the Grudge crawls down on with her broken leg and making that freaking creepy sound. I'm not even kidding. I had so much trouble sleeping last night because I was just so scared. And it's just been so long since I've seen this movie, so I totally forgot all of those creepy jump scares. I mean, I can remember most of them, but there's just some part of them that I just don't remember. But as I said, I had my sketch pad and I drew out where I could see things go, furniture and all that kind of good stuff. Also how the layout was presented throughout this movie. So there's a lot of empty space, and you're gonna see me try to fill that and kind of work around it, kind of like I'm doing here. So there was at some point in the movie when Karen is sent over to take care of Emma, the old lady living in the house. She goes into Emma's bedroom, and there's like these shutters to the outside. She opens them, and then there's a clothing line outside. And later in the movie, when Karen's boss comes to take a look for her, kind of see how everything's going, there's two sets of doors. So there's the inner shutters and the outer shutters, and I tried to recreate that, but it's really difficult because it wasn't really clear how that worked. I mean, I would presume that it would just be like sliding doors, but yeah, I couldn't really tell you, so I tried to kind of recreate my own style here, and kind of make it as though it looked like, you know, those sliding doors that would kind of fold together. And also, yeah, the entrance here, I did my best to do with what I could. So there's a tradition in the Japanese culture that you take your shoes off in this little hallway before you enter the house. Even if it's your own house, you just enter without shoes on, and then there's most of the times those little like slippers that you could put on to walk around the house, which I thought was a really cool idea. But I wanted to recreate that entrance as best I could, so I had to have a step down and then for it to go up, but the doorway was in the way as well, so again, had to get really creative. Here I'm kind of working on the bathroom. Again, the size was just too big for where everything was placed, and this is kind of the problem with recreating movie sets in The Sims. There's just, the proportions are all off, and you can't really recreate it without having to cheat the game a little bit, if you guys know what I mean. Excuse me. So here I was trying to again recreate kind of like these sliding doors that would go into Emma's room, and I was also, you're gonna see that later, trying to recreate her bed that was on the floor. So it was really difficult. I mean, it was a task, but I loved doing it. I just think this house turned out so creepy and so in touch with what I remember from the movies. Again, I had to take some creative liberties here and there to really get it to that point where you could feel like it was the house of the Grudge. But I think it turned out really good in the end. Just a last part of the shutting doors, sliding doors, whatever we want to call them. I couldn't figure out what the flooring was supposed to be like in this house, because I feel like it looked like it was wooden flooring throughout the whole build. But then going back and looking at it, it was different from when the Americans lived there to where the Japanese family lived there. So I decided to go with, and I'm going to change it again, I decided to go with a more traditional kind of like slab of concrete that looked not dirty, but you know, not polished. So that's kind of the direction I was going for here. Again, the back, have no idea what the backyard looks like. We get a brief glimpse of what the side garden looks like when Karen is putting up the bed linens from Emma's accident, because she peed herself, which is understandably giving the situation that she's in. But yeah, there was just a clothing line and a little stair like walkway from the main entrance to the back as well, which is where Karen's boss entered the house firstly. Then there was in the front here, we had like in the picture and in the movie I was working off, there was like these little overhangs over these two windows. I couldn't figure out how to do it because making a tile would just be too much. So this was the closest thing I could get to recreating that. It's actually, this was such a difficult build. It took me a little over 2.5 hours just to do this build, and it's a fairly basic build. I mean, there's not a lot going into it. It's not like I had to decorate a whole ton, because there's just not that many decorations in the house. I mean, the family didn't actually get to unbox most of their stuff, so I decided to, and you're gonna see that in a little bit, I decided to put boxes everywhere, which I kind of felt like could be moving boxes. And again, here there's just, we have this, we see the hallway down into the room where she was killed, but you don't actually see what's in the sideways or side hall. We know there's a clothing line there, and then there's this room which I presume is a bathroom, but I didn't actually put anything in there just because I didn't know. I don't know what's in there. Then I took a cue from the Grudge 2, which I remember was also freaking creepy, and I decided to kind of make the room filled with newspapers and that stuff, which I thought looked really creepy, and it just has this really creepy vibe. Of course, the closet there, I was trying to find the right color. I decided to make it a little bit darker than it was in the game. Also working with some really creepy lighting in here. I'm gonna throw in some what is it called? Sketches that you can get in the game if you use the ignore gameplay unlocks entitlement cheat. There was some really creepy sketches of a woman with black hair, which I thought fit perfectly to what we were doing. And overall, I just tried to make this room creepy, not putting too much stuff in there. This is where the bedroom is for the American family, so this is where Toshio's, hope I say that right or remember that right, Toshio, this is where his room would be, where he had his father dangling from the ceiling as he kind of smashes him into the wall, which is also very disturbing. All throughout this house, I decided to put in on the walls kind of like these little scratches. You're gonna see them in the screenshots in the end as well, where I could kind of see a struggle was there in my head. You know, when he tried to kill her first time before he snapped her neck, she was crawling on the floor, reaching out on the walls and kind of scratching everything to get away from him, which was really disturbing. But I kind of tried to recreate that as well, and I think just the whole aesthetic of the house is really creepy. I mean, it really freaked me out when I was doing this, and I swear to God, I could hear stuff. I know it sounds ridiculous, but there was noises, and I was so freaked out when I started editing this and putting in the music for the intro, which I hope you guys enjoyed, because it was freaking creepy and I didn't know what to do about myself. So here's when I decided to start working on the American version of the living room, just because there's a bit more options for me to actually get it more right and faithful to what you actually see in the movie than if I were to go for the Japanese version of the interior in this house. And this is also where some inconsistencies with the build and the layout of the house comes to mind, because where I'm kind of putting those tables now Where that painting was, there is supposed to be a window, but it just made no sense whatsoever. Why would there be a window there when from the outside there is clearly no window? So that's kind of some of the inconsistencies, and I had to really think about how I would do this build. But I think it turned out really nice. Working on Emma's room now, and she was sleeping on a bed on the floor, which is all good. I know that's the custom down there. So I tried to just create like my own little floor bed. I think it looks, I mean, you can kind of tell it's a bed, but yeah, I probably would have loved to have a bit more substance to it, but you know, you can see what it is. Working on the kitchen now. This is again where there's just some inconsistencies, but you don't spend too much time in the kitchen really. You see it just for a couple of scenes, and then it's kind of like just in the background. So I had to really study these scenes that I had with the kitchen really well to kind of try and recreate what I could see, but I couldn't actually see any stovetop whatsoever, so I also had just to put that in. And then there was a hallway to the backyard, which again, I don't know where it leads, so I just put a fake stairwell, so you can't actually use the door, or you cannot use the door in Emma's room as well. It's not usable, but it's there for trying to get it to be as correctly as possible. Now to the creepy bathroom. So we have this bathroom split up into two. The one room where Toshio is drowning in the bathtub, I recreated, and the rest of the bathroom I just had to kind of wing because we don't actually see that much of it either. So it's kind of a whole big try to wing it build this, but I think it turned out really good and somewhat faithful to the American version of this build, and I think it looks super creepy. I definitely get this creepy Grudge vibe when I go into the build, and I hope you guys do as well. It was really fun to build. It was different, and I really enjoyed it, to be honest. It's something different, and I don't know if anybody else has tried to recreate this. I'm sure they have, but I tried to do it as best as I could to the knowledge I had with the house and the franchise. So this is kind of where my direction went. And I also chose this lot just to have it kind of in the city, but kind of excluded from everything else, if that makes every bit of sense to you as it does to me. So it was kind of, you can see the city in the background, but it's kind of there, which I thought was really cool. As we jump into the screenshots in just a little bit, I'm just kind of finishing up some last touches and trying to figure out where everything would go, put in some plants just to kind of, you know, decorate it up a bit. And here we have the creepy house, of course, with the mirror where Karen sees a reflection of the curse, but looks back and then there's nothing. I think that's freaking creepy. I remember that, and I was so afraid to climb under my bed or under my sheets on my bed because the Grudge could be there, and I didn't want to look in the mirrors either, first time that I saw this movie. But yeah, you can get this build if you want to on the gallery right now. People have been having trouble finding me, but that should be resolved now. I have been in contact with EA support, and they told me to do some stuff, and it seems like that worked. Probably You guys tell me if it worked or not. I'm working on some really cool stuff with some other builders here on YouTube, so definitely stay tuned for that. And yeah, again, get this build, just search my origin ID, which is Auvbri, and you should be able to find every single thing that I have done, or at least most of it, now that it's working probably. Happy Halloween, everyone, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to check out some of my other stuff here. You might find something you like. Why not leave this video a comment down below, tell me what you thought about it, and leave it a like. And yeah, there's nothing else for me to say other than happy Halloween and have a fantastic day wherever you are in the world. Bye!